We're 2 weeks away from the NHL Draft, so more draft talk. Jonathan Toews seems to be narrowing down his list, and the Blackhawks don't seem to be on it. And a wild Stanley Cup Final game last night. All that and more next on CHGO Blackhawks. Happy Friday, finally. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. I'm Jay Zawaski. That's Mario Tirabassi. Katie Duffy's over there running the show. Trust me, she's there. She's right over there. She's not talking. Say something.
I didn't know you wanted me to talk.
I need to prove. Now, I feel like I protested too hard that you were here.
Yeah.
So we had to prove you're safe.
I am here. I'm not a ghost.
Okay, Katie is here.
Present.
See, I told you.
I
wasn't lying about it. She's right here. And everyone else here, that's it.
That's it.
The three of us in this office.
It's a quiet studio.
It's nice.
I like it.
No one is screaming about the Cubs.
No.
Currently. Thanks for being with us. We love you. Sorry about yesterday's internet fiasco, but it wasn't our fault. Blame the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you tried to join us live and missed it, we did record a show. It is out there, so check it out. And we're glad you're here with us live today. So hit that like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're following or subscribed there as well. Great Cup Final game last night. Jonathan Toews narrowing down his list. We are expecting an interview with Will Scouch. We have not heard from him yet, but as soon as he jumps on, we'll go to him. So why don't we start with Jonathan Toews today, Mario, as we wait here. Over the last few days, different reporters have given different insights. So we had Pierre LeBrun first throw out Colorado and Winnipeg, the two seeming favorites based on conversation.
Seems that way, yeah.
Elliot Friedman added the Lightning today, and Michael Russo added the Wild as an option for Jonathan Toews. For the record, Jonathan Toews has been working out in Minnesota. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that's where he's doing his off-season prep work. So maybe we're going to get a decision on that pretty soon here.
Yeah, and if he stays in the Central Division, wonderful. Blackhawks get to see him 4 to 6 times for the year. That would be weird, and he's going to be on one of the teams that's better than the Blackhawks in the Central Division, which almost all of them are.
Yeah.
So some wins over his former team might be in the mix there. Let's continue this conversation.
Yes.
After
Let's put a pin in it.
we talk with Will Scouch of Scouching. It's NHL draft time as he is here with us. We'll get him going in a little bit. Blackhawks have 2 picks in the first round, and we have been talking the number 3 overall pick into the ground. I don't know how much more we can talk about it over the next 2 weeks, except we're going to talk about it 5 days a week for the next 2 weeks. But I want to pose to Will the first question. Do you expect... hi, Will.
Hi, Will.
Hello. Nice to see you. How you doing?
My question would be to lead into it. Do you expect the Hawks to make both of their picks at number 3 and 25, as there's been some talk of maybe that 25 pick is in the mix for them to try and move up?
I could see it. I mean, I think if I'm Chicago, like, they're one of the teams this year who they've drafted so much over the last few years that I think they can afford, to maybe move the needle a little bit, trade a first round pick, and try to get someone who can make their team a little bit better right now. In this year's draft class, I don't think at 25 you're getting like a super game-changing talent in all likelihood, and considering how much Chicago has already drafted, I think you hope that you have enough in the stable to build a team. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially because they also have a pretty high second-round pick. So, especially with 3rd overall, it depends on what's out there, of course. It depends on what you're getting. But I mean, I think there is plenty of jobs open for Chicago. I think they've got plenty of opportunities to be a little creative here and see what they can do. So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, I would say.
Yeah, it's gonna. I know we have taught to death the third overall pick, but as we're going through mock drafts and we're seeing where the Hawks might be going, you're a guy who did not pick Anton Frundell, which seems to be the way it's going. Who do you see the Hawks picking at 3?
Well, I mean, the way I see it is I look at the Chicago Blackhawks and they're such a weird team in a good way. Like they have a little bit of everything in a way. It's like they have some skill, they have some size, they have some physicality, they have some defensemen. They've done a good job like having a little bit of everything in their system. So they could kind of go in any real direction they want. Now for me, I mean, I'm not overthinking this. To me, I've seen a lot of James Hagens over the course of this season, and I think that he brings something that, yes, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I think he brings something the Blackhawks could use a little more of, which is like energy and real offensive pushing at a high pace of play. I think he would play off a guy like Connor Bedard really, really well. The other guys that are on the roster, I think he could play off those guys as well. I think also people criticize smaller players for a lack of physicality or something, but James Hagens, since the World Junior, I thought really turned a corner with how comfortable he was at that side of the game. You know, he was throwing hits, he was mixing it up, he was making plays down low. So I think he's doing a lot more that I think could do really well in a system like Chicago's. They've gone out and gotten a lot of other guys with some size. Vanacker come to mind and Boisvert comes to mind. Like these are bigger players that you can sort of insulate him around. But I mean, there's a ton of different directions I think Chicago could go here, and none of them would really surprise me. But my thing with them has always been, I feel like Connor Bedard needs that like devoted offensive output guy to really be that 1-2 offensive scoring ability guy with him. Last year, I thought that would be Ivan Demidov, but this year, I mean, now you have the opportunity to add one of the most dynamic playmakers and really creative, high-paced playmakers in this year's draft, and I would probably look that direction.
The other guys that we've been talking about, aside from Frondell and Hagens, it seems like Porter Martone's name comes up a lot, Caleb Desnoyers. Not as much as we've gotten closer to the draft, but it's still a guy that's kind of in that realm. With Martone specifically, one of the things when you look at the fit for him with Chicago is Chicago and Kyle Davidson's love and high, priority on skating. And Martone, that's kind of like the one thing that kind of holds him back from being more dynamic. Do you feel like Martone could be a fit there where, the Blackhawks might say someone with size, someone on the wing, someone with his skills, you overlook the skating?
I mean, I think it's possible. The thing about Martone that is a nice combination, again, I'm thinking about the guys that are going to play a ton of minutes with Chicago, right? And obviously the number one name that comes to mind is Connor Bedard, right? And I think a guy like Porter Martone is a brilliant playmaker. Like, I think that's the thing that really sticks out about him is he's a really, really good passer and sees the ice really well generally. And that's something that also could be a huge benefit. And I think it kind of undoes some of the like downsides with regards to how he plays. The pace of his game is not necessarily super high. He is a physical player, but I think he does need to sort of ratchet up the speed of his game a little bit. And that would definitely open up a lot of doors for him. Luckily, though, like we had the pleasure of interviewing him a few months ago, and we talked to him about this specifically, and he knows, like he's aware that these are problems or issues that he's going to work through. So for me, I look at that and I go, he had the maturity level to go, yeah, I recognize that there are things about my game that could limit me. I want to be an NHL player. Like I know, and he kind of had it bang on of like what he wants to do better. So I think that's a good indicator. I'm sure a lot of players are like that, but he seemed to really get it. And so I think he's going to do the things that need to be done. If he leaves the OHL for this next season and goes to college hockey, I think that would be a really interesting fit for him. And I mean, I feel like if it's not who I would want at 3 in Hagens, like Martone is part of that short list. He's pretty soon after that as a guy that I would consider at that pick.
I was watching some of your scouting reports, Will, on YouTube, and saw your one on Anton Frundell. And the reason we keep coming back to him is because Scott Powers, who is the most plugged in Hawks reporter in town, is basically saying it's a pretty good chance that's going to be the pick. I know you've been a little bit up and down on him, but I think lately he's sort of solidified himself in your eyes. If the Hawks do take Anton Frundell at 3, what are they getting and how do you see him fitting?
Well, Frondell is very interesting. I honestly, I mean this positively, I don't really know what they're getting. Like, I think he's a guy who I think could go a number of different directions in his career, and I think that there's a bit of flexibility to him that makes him accessible and good. Good, like a good option. I think with him, he brings a nice floor, right? He's physical. He is a really smart player off the puck at both ends of the ice. I think he does the things that coaches will look for him to do. He's not slow. He finishes his checks. He makes smart plays a lot of the time. He's a good goal scorer as well. Like, he brings a lot to the table that I think work. Personally, I think with Frondell, I think what really would be the upside of him is like one of those wingers who is on your first line and is just a guy you need on the first line to help the more like pacey puck control possession guys succeed. And Frondell does that really well. Now, playing center, I feel like his game is a little more limited. Like, the skating and skill combination, I think, is a little bit more of a question mark. But again, if you're Chicago, like, you've drafted so much and you have so much, a little bit of everything, that I think you can afford to take on the flexibility of Frondell and see where he fits. And I feel like, he might be a good third-line center for a team that goes to a really deep Stanley Cup run maybe one day. But he could be I think he's one of the best sort of complementary forwards that we've seen in a little while. I don't really know where he's going. I think 3, I could see it. He's in a tier for me in that range. But I think that it really just depends on where you see him going in his career. But I mean, he's a perfectly acceptable option. I think he's gonna play. It's just a matter of like with the limitations in his game and how they project to the NHL.
How it feels about so many of these guys outside of Misa and Schaefer. It's like, yeah, it's fine. A perfectly acceptable pick. Like you mentioned Demidov last year. There were 2 factions in Chicago. There was Demidov and Levshinov, and it was probably 70-30 towards Demidov. And people are really dug in and still talk about it. This draft doesn't quite feel, I think everyone's got their guy, but I don't think anyone feels like it has to be, I'm pounding the table for this guy. But it seems like what you're saying about Hagens might put him on a different tier than some of those guys right below him.
Well, I think the thing is, it's a matter of what you prioritize, I think. And the thing that's interesting that I think people don't really think about all that much is that different NHL teams have different philosophies, right? They have different ways of looking at value, right? It's not like people have been saying forever, like, oh, you just take the best player available. My retort to that is, what do you mean by best? Like, what does that mean, right? And so to me, I go by my definition, which is like, I want guys who are capable of doing the most difficult things in the NHL the best, which is often scoring. Like, scoring in the NHL is really, 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 really hard. Not a lot of guys are really, really good at it. So when I see a guy who plays at a high pace of play, plays with a lot of creativity and skill, and really also brings a physical edge off the puck, I mean, to me, there's not many guys in this year's draft class that bring that. Could someone else come at me and say, I'd rather have the physical floor and the size of an Anton Frondell? Sure. But I just feel like with a 3rd overall pick, you should probably aim high for what you think could be a real offensive difference maker in the NHL, because, the physical side of the game, the resisting hits and all of that stuff, to me, is that really the biggest priority for an NHL team? Maybe. But I look at Hagens and see a guy who, for what he's got in terms of skill and tools offensively, brings enough defensively where I go, there's something I can work with here. And I know I've seen comments about people talking about like his production this year. Personally, it doesn't really worry me. There is an area of his game that I would say is a legitimate concern, which is the ability to get into scoring areas himself, get scoring chances for himself. He just kind of felt a little limited there. And so for me, that's a bit of an issue to work on. But as a playmaker and a guy who can like chain plays together, keep up with a high flow rate of play, like all these things, he does it really well. There are a lot of other options, though, in this year's draft that I think you can look at and go, yeah, but when the game is slower and more physical or whatever, these guys are a little more reliable. And so can I disagree with that? No, but I just have what I prioritize, which is a little bit more about like that offensive upside, that puck skill, that playmaking ability, all those things that I think separate a guy like that a little bit from the rest of the pack at that point.
See if Will can stay through the break.
Yeah, or we can just can you
Sure.
hang on for like another 15 minutes?
Sir. Yeah.
Why don't we just push the break?
Can we push the break?
We're pushing the break.
We'll push
the break has been pushed.
All right.
It's all pushed out.
Love the on-air production. Talking about the number 3 pick and the guys that are there, I think as we're kind of talking about it, like the list of the players has been pretty, consistent with the same 5-6 names rotating around. Do you see? I've seen some, a lot of players kind of come up the board, as you'd say in the public space. Jake O'Brien, Brady Martin. Could you see someone jumping into that top 5, and maybe not necessarily number 3 with the Blackhawks, but could you see someone like that, jumping into that range that we're maybe not expecting?
Yeah. I mean, it seems now from what I've read and like what I've seen and what I've heard, someone like Brady Martin is going to go really, really, really high. Like there's thoughts out there that, like, I was reading some quotes from NHL scouts, and it was like, if he's there at 4, he's a steal, or a 5, right? So it's like, is that a guy that's going to go 3, 2? Like, I don't know. I mean, I think that recency bias is definitely a thing. I look at a guy like Brady Martin. He had a great under 18s, but personally, I don't think that level of competition is really that valuable anymore. And a guy like Michael Misa was injured, had not such a good playoff, and they got eliminated really quickly. So maybe there's some sort of perceived bias against Misa when a guy like Martin, you look at him and he interviewed extremely well from everything I can gather. So that's one guy that I think is going to go really high. I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Radim Murtka go really high as well. I think NHL teams look at the bio of him and go, big 6'6" right-hand shot defenseman who is a pretty decent skater. We can work with that and turn him into something. I feel like in this class, like, you've got Schaefer at the top, I think by far the best defenseman available. And then there's a bunch of guys that, depending on what you like, you could take them wherever. And it's very, very rare to not see see fewer than 2 defensemen go in the top 10. So Murtka is one that I think is going to be a really intriguing option. But I mean, I don't know if I'd do it there, but I could see an NHL team doing it. Outside of that, I mean, I'll be very curious if Roger McQueen sneaks his way into the top 10, mostly because there are injury concerns, and I know teams that they have the resources, I don't, so they might be doing medical checks on him, second opinions, whatever. And so if they feel a lot more confident based on that evaluation, maybe he's a guy that goes top 5 or something like that. I every year I feel like I'm ready for anything come the draft, and then the draft happens, and I'm surprised. So I'm trying to have the mentality that nothing will surprise me. And I think in this year's draft class, anything is possible, because a lot of teams are just like what you said. There's the first couple of guys, and then they just go, yeah, let's see what happens. We like this guy, so sure, and that's just the way it is this year for me.
Well, you mentioned the recency bias with Brady Martin, and I'm a victim of that. I like him. Maybe not a 3, but very, very intriguing.
Okay, he's a good player,
But I wonder how much the success of the Florida Panthers is dictating the growth of somebody like Brady Martin, where, like, well, look at this team. They're really, really good, and they're big and physical, and they play like. Are the Florida Panthers starting to influence the way teams think about building their hockey teams?
Yes, but I'm not sure they really should, because I feel like when teams start to chase something that another team has really nailed down as a strategy, that's when you start to make mistakes, I think. Like, for me, I think it's more important to have, like, organizational, I can't believe I'm about to use this word, but like organizational synergy, where like the general manager, the coach, the management staff, they all understand like what the ultimate goal is, and the coach is willing to like enforce that, and they're all on the same page. The scouts know what they value, all that stuff, right? You're trying to build a group that works in the way that you want it to work. You watch the Florida Panthers, it's not one guy doing it all, right? It's 4 lines of, they look at all the guys they've just brought in who were cast-offs from other teams. They weren't high draft picks, right? Some of them are waiver claims. So just because you have a high draft pick and you're picking a guy that you go, yeah, this guy looks a lot like Sam Bennett. It's like, well, okay, but the Florida Panthers are a team filled with guys who buy into that style of play, and they're all not high draft picks by and large, outside of obviously guys like Tkachuk and Bennett, but Bennett was not Bennett when he was a draft eligible. So I think at the end of the day, like, for me, I think I always just rely on my own philosophy of the sport and go, I think what Florida does works, and it's really hard to counter. But, I mean, at the same time, you see some of the Oilers, the Oilers are also hanging just fine, and statistically, Toronto is the team that has given the Panthers the hardest time. Toronto was almost up 3-0 on Florida in their series, and Toronto is not really built like Florida. I think they're trying to be more like Florida, but they're not really that type of team. So for Florida, the other thing too, just to finish this off, I think a thing about Florida that is kind of undervalued is that their defensemen really push in the offensive zone. Like, they're aggressive in the offensive zone. So for me, that's an indicator of almost like going against the grain of typical hockey thinking. So it's like, it's not just that Florida throws hits. It's not just that they're physical. It's the whole unit and the strategy as a whole that's almost like a Jurgen Klopp gegenpress, right? Like, it's just always pushing. And so if that's the strategy, then you have to build around that. Is Brady Martin part of that potential strategy? Maybe. But I think there are other players that are also part of that mix, right? And it depends on what you believe in, really, is what I'm getting at. But I do think it is part of what's happening.
I love Jurgen Klopp referenced on a CHGO Blackhawks podcast. That tickles my heart. Thank you very much for that, Will.
Yeah, and I actually understood it too.
Yeah.
Wanted to kind of get into maybe the back end of the first round. Blackhawks have the 25th pick. If they do end up using it, one guy that I've been fond of kind of as we've gone through this draft process is Malcolm Spence, and he's someone that you had in your recent mock draft, the Blackhawks going at number 25 with. What do you get the read on with him, and what can you tell us about him?
Well, I mean, I think he is he's another one of these guys that has that solid floor. Like, you can tell when you watch him, he's competitive, he's a physical player. I think that his intelligence on the puck is a little underrated, like his ability to move the puck up the ice and, stop up and create gaps and create passing lanes, like just move the puck up the ice with smart but simple play is really solid, right? Similar to a lot of other players in this draft class, it's more about like the upside in his game. And I do think that the pace of his game is a little low. And so is he going to get left behind defensively a little bit? But you can't fault that he has a competitive edge to him that is impossible to ignore. And so I feel like there is the potential for him to probably improve quite a bit from here. Apparently it came out today that he was fighting an infection like all season long. So maybe that factors into why I think he might have underperformed what I expected. But for me, I like him. He's another one of these guys where he's a winger, and I could see him playing in your bottom six and doing a pretty good job at it. Is he the guy that I would absolutely be looking at if I'm Chicago? He's probably on the short list in that range. It probably makes sense. I don't know if he'll be there, but yeah, he would be a solid option. It's just I wouldn't expect him to be like a top six guy. It would be more like, he'll chip in, he'll be a competitive guy down your lineup with a bit of offensive tools to him as well.
As we look down towards number 25 for Chicago, if they do indeed make the pick, what are some of the names that Chicago fans should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, at that point in the draft, the guys who I think will be available there, I would be looking, I know I can hear the comments already coming in that Chicago doesn't need more small guys, but Cullen Potter is an electrifying college player who I think will be available there, and he's one of the best skating and skill combinations and shot combinations in the entire draft. I think you look at a James Hagens, he had the advantage of playing with two top NHL draft picks all season long. Cullen Potter had the advantage of playing with guys who might play some AHL hockey, right? Like there's a very wide gap between quality of teammates, and Cullen Potter just guys kind of weren't on his level, I don't think. But there are flaws in his game that will knock him down to that range. But he is an easy one for me at that point. Other ones, there's probably two others I think are realistic in that range. I'd say Eric Nilsson out of Sweden. I think that kid, he is wiry thin. Like I think he's 6'1", 6'2", and he is like 155 pounds or something. So it's like there's like a long way to go physically for him to develop. And I know for a fact that his parents are pretty tall, so there still might be some growth as well. But in terms of like quarterback style players, just marching the puck up the ice really, really well, making everyone else who he plays with better. There was a moment in the season this year where I was watching someone else on his team, and someone threw an opponent into the bench, like hit him and like shoved him over and over into the bench. I'm going, what defenseman wearing number 3 is throwing this guy over the boards and doing this crazy stuff over in Sweden? It's Eric Nilsson. It wasn't even a defenseman. Like he's a true 200-foot center who I think is that like Philip Deneau type who just goes out and does good things, even if he might not score all that much. The other one I would say is Bill Zanon, who's a Quebec kid. I love him. I think in terms of you want a Florida Panther, that's the guy I would go for, right? Energy, physicality, pretty good skill as well. Really reminds me of a guy like a Will Carrier, a guy who just gets up and down the ice a ton. NHL teams want to have guys like that around. He's a guy who can help you in the playoffs. Like he's physical, but he's also, not a dummy. This guy knows how to move the puck. He drove a lot of good scoring chances for his team. He played center for the first time this year, I believe, in the Q, and I think got a lot better as the season went on. And by the end of the year, I mean, he was really exciting. And those are some of the guys I would look at. Maybe Shane Vinsagi as well. I mean, at the end of the day, in this year's draft class, based on the nature of how it breaks down, like my really ideal players that I really like in this draft ends at 25. So someone that I really like, at least one, will be there for them. And so, unless you get something you really, really want in the NHL, like that can play right away, I would at least see what's floating around in that range of the draft.
Cullen Potter is such a Kyle Davidson pick.
Feels like it.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
it jumps off the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a bit of like the opposite of Oliver Moore. Like he's more of like a shooter and a lot more sort of reckless maybe, whereas Oliver Moore is a really clever, smart, high-paced playmaking type. So they might be a bit of a mirror image of each other, but again, in terms of like how you might beat a team like Florida, like I mean, a guy with speed and skill and like elite level talent in that trait, if he can sort of work through that kind of pressure and force them to chase him, maybe that's a different path forward. But at 25th overall, I mean, he is at least one of the most, if not the most exciting player that will probably be available if he's there.
One of the interesting stories of the draft, I feel like, is going to be Mason West out of Minnesota. The two-sport athlete, raw talent, is committed to finishing out his high school football career in Minnesota before then committing to his NHL or his hockey career, rather. He seems like one of those guys that maybe a team might get wild and take him in the first round. What do you make of him from his raw skill set, his athleticism? And the Blackhawks went with AJ Spellacy in last year's draft, who kind of has a similar story. But what do you make of the big centerman Mason West?
Well, that's an interesting point you make about Spellacy. Like that's the side of Chicago that I also think they do a lot, is draft these bigger sort of energetic guys. Like Paul Ludwinski's another one they've drafted in the past, and John Mustard is kind of like that. So they've done this before. I don't think Mason West is quite like that. I think Mason West is more of a sort of control the pace of the game type skill forward with some playmaking ability. And, he's not the guy pushing the energy of the game a tremendous amount, but he's not a bad skater. There's nothing really about him where I'm going, I would have question marks. I just feel like this sounds bad, but I don't mean it badly. But when he plays hockey, it feels like he's not quite a hockey player. Like he doesn't really have the energy and the back and forth, 200-foot game that seems to be what he's capable of as a 6'5", whatever kid. But I mean, I also think it is a little bit, not a concern, but something to keep in mind that he is going to go back and play football. He's going to be back in the USHL next year, and that's going to set him behind, right? He's going to be going to college hockey a year later. And other guys will have been there for 2 years at this point, right? Some guys will be well past major junior and into the NCAA. So catching up to that is possible. I can't say it's impossible, but it is something to note, right? Like that there is going to be a longer pathway for him. And based on what I've seen of him, he's a good player, but I think first round, I mean, he's a bit too much of a mystery box for me there. But I mean, I compare him a little bit to a similar story to Dean Letourneau last year, where Letourneau, I wouldn't want him, I didn't think he would go to college hockey so fast, and I don't think Mason West should go to college hockey next year either. So, but a year in the USHL might really help him and help him round out and fill out a little bit and really sort of figure out what type of player he is, because I'm not sure he's quite there yet. But, He's a mystery box. Anything could happen.
It could be anything. It could be a
It could
Could
be a
even
box.
be Mason West.
box. Yes, exactly. Will, that was great stuff, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for your generosity with your time. I'm sure we'll catch up quickly after the draft and tell us how the Hawks did. Thanks, Will.
Yes.
That is Will
Thanks, Will.
Scouch, draft analyst. Awesome stuff right there. We're going to hit the break zone. Before we do, hit the like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. Back in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks.
And summer is here, I think.
Ish.
Mostly. Is your air conditioning ready for the hot heat? If it's not, you better call Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. They've been serving the Chicagoland area for over 50 years, and now is the time to get your air conditioning checked out. Four Seasons experts are ready to help you with AC installation, maintenance, and repair. Four Seasons expert technicians ensure you always receive reliable service. And what's great about Four Seasons is if you have an emergency at night or on a weekend or during a holiday, they don't charge you more for service during those times. Schedule your Four Seasons AC tune-up today and save $50 and enjoy a 1-year no breakdown guarantee. Your trusted local experts are Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all of their special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, that's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
And we've been talking a while about the Hall of Fame app. This is not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes. It's a full analytics engine. The HOF apps gives you full access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help you bet smarter. The app is built for the everyday sports fan, so it's easy and intuitive to use. You'll get an idea of your parlays, chances to hit, and identify weak legs so you can weed them out before you place them. And maybe the best part, once you've built your parlay, you can send it straight to your sportsbook with one click. No manual entry, no wasted time. The HOF app syncs automatically with most major sportsbooks. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when you use the code CHGO at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS or Android or visit HOFbets.com. Enter code CHGO and you're all set. Anyway, Jonathan Toews, as we were talking about before Will interrupted us with
so
a 30-minute segment. No, if you missed the start of the show, Will had not dialed in yet. We started talking about Jonathan Toews, and right on cue.
Yeah.
Right on cue, the guest line rings. So we're going to get back into Toews. But again, we need more likes. Katie is getting frustrated.
Let's get it going here.
Way more. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I know it's Friday, but come on.
Yeah, I mean, it is Friday. Hit it.
It's Friday, yeah. Friday should be the day you like the most.
Yes. Come on. And we're 2 weeks from the NHL draft.
Yeah.
You hit that like button, and the Blackhawks are guaranteed to select the player you want.
Yes.
And trade for the guy you want.
Yeah. And in free agency, they'll sign the player that you want, too.
That's right.
Yeah. Each
3 for 3.
Get you more of that.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome stuff with Will.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, so, we're, like we said, there's 2 weeks of the draft. We're going to have so much more draft talk in the next 2 weeks. But yeah, with Toews and his comeback, it really does feel like Winnipeg is still the front runner.
Yeah, do we need to refresh?
It feels the most like, yeah, hometown thing, blah, blah, blah. But also it makes sense. Like, they could use the depth help. They're a contender. They're a team that can make it work. So it still does feel like if I'm betting on a team that's going to sign Jonathan Toews, I'd say my front runner would be Winnipeg.
So just to refresh, in case you missed it, LeBrun said Colorado, Winnipeg. Elliot Friedman added Tampa today, and Michael Russo, who works in Minnesota, added the Wild to the list, and Jonathan Toews is working out in Minnesota. If you want to connect that dot, that one to me makes the least sense.
Minnesota,
and I'm going to be honest. I really liked this year's Wild team. Yeah, they were a lot different than the Wild teams of yore.
Yeah,
right. Like they're pretty deep. They're got exciting young players. They've obviously got the superstar in Kaprizov. I really like Marcus Foligno. Like I like the direction, and they've got a butt ton of cap space. So with Suter and Parise finally coming off the books,
right?
Like so they've got some stuff to work with. So if they could sell the Jonathan Toews, like, look, you're you're just going to be part of what we had this offseason. Like, we're going to make big pushes towards XYZ, and Kaprizov's not going anywhere. We're going to make sure we re-sign him and keep him happy. He's a Wild for life. I mean, you could see it, but to me, it just feels like Winnipeg or Colorado. I just almost can't see him anywhere else. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But they both make so much sense for so many reasons. I like Minnesota. I don't think they're cup ready. I think Colorado and Winnipeg are cup ready, and I think that's what he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, you know, with Colorado, like since they had their cup run with Nazem Kadri, they've been trying to replace Nazem Kadri. And I think not to say Jonathan Toews is going to be the second line center Nazem Kadri. No, but they have invested in Brock Nelson. They've got Charlie Coyle. You add Toews to that mix down the middle, like you easily can play him as your fourth line center or in a bottom six role, because you don't sign him expecting him to be your second line center playing 18 minutes a night and all that stuff. Like, he's going to be most likely most useful as a depth guy, maybe a penalty killer. It's going to be, you know, a question mark once he starts the season. How is his body going to hold up? Because that's the biggest thing going into this. The skill is still there. We saw it when he was here in Chicago that last season. Like, he still had moments where he could be Jonathan Toews from time to time. It was just the day-to-day and the grind of an NHL season that just wore down on his body. So we'll see where he's at physically, but if he's able to, you know, handle 13, 14, 15 minutes a night, handle those responsibilities, like he's not going to command a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just, you know, the resume that he brings, like he's going to be a really good depth piece. So Colorado could make a lot of sense. His veteran minimum contract or whatever it is going to go farther in Tampa than it will most anywhere else because of that competitive advantage that Florida has in the state, no state income tax. But even Tampa, like that's again another team that can just find ways to find valuable depth, and if he goes there, again, it's going to be that same situation.
I wonder for Toews if it's because you want to find out what's motivating him, right? And I think we'll find out when he signs. It's like, does he want an opportunity to play in a bigger role, or does he sort of welcome the idea of going to a team that maybe doesn't need him to be great and ease himself in? Like, start off fourth line center, 10, 11 minutes a night, ease yourself back into the season, and then work your way up. And then maybe you discover what you were 4 or 5 years ago,
right?
And become a really solid 2 or 3. Or if he's like, no, if I'm signing to play now, I want to be thrown into a meaningful role and play second or third line center right away. I think that could maybe happen more easily for him in Minnesota, but I don't know. Like I've said since this first came out, I'm not betting against that guy. Like, that's the one dude I think is going to have the ability to come back and return to where he was. I don't want to say the year he walked away, but even when he played that year, he missed a ton of games. But when he played, he was still effective.
He had like 35 points in 51 games, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, like we said, it wasn't the same Jonathan Toews. But he wasn't far off, especially for where he's at, you know, in his career age-wise. Like, yeah, it's up there, but I 31 points in 53 games. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, I'm not betting against him, like you said. I think there's definitely a guy. He is definitely a guy that if could take 2 years off and go through the medical stuff that he did to come back and still be a serviceable NHL player, it'd be him. I just think like if he gets back to that level that he had that last season, but he just feels physically better, can play 60, 70 games at that level, hopefully more for the team signing him. But if he can do that, like that's gonna be well worth, you know, the teams signing him's time, because he's still going to be, you know, that third line center that you can rely on for penalty killing, win you a tough face-off, can, you know, play those big moments because he's been there, done that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think it was Chris Johnson originally said that at least 10 teams had expressed interest in signing him, and he can sign at any time, or he can get a deal in place at any time.
He can sign before the draft because he was not like property of a team, so he can sign anytime he wants.
All right, I thought I saw something.
Because I think he said he's going to sign before the draft.
Okay, I thought I saw something that says maybe it won't be official quote unquote until the first. But yeah, I mean, teams are gonna figure that out. And like if you're a team that's looking to get a piece like that, like if you are a Colorado or Winnipeg, like trying to bolster the depth of your group in free agency, if you can do it before any of those other teams get to July 1st, and you can do it with Toews, like if you believe in him, why not go that route?
By the way, did you know his last year he won 63% of his faceoffs?
Yeah, that wasn't it? He was there. Yeah, wasn't it like him and Max Domi were like?
Oh yeah, Domi was like 61.
Yeah, they were like both like top 5 in the league or something like that when they were in Chicago.
And boy, did it pay off!
Yeah, winning all those faceoffs really mattered a whole bunch.
You know, it's funny you mentioned something about the Florida State advantage, and I saw that Gary Bettman on the TNT panel. I think it was before Game 1 of the Cup Final, and asked him about that, and he's like, "This is ridiculous. Everyone's making this a story. It was not an advantage when Florida and Tampa were not good,
right?
Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. It was still an advantage, and I think if those teams ever got anybody, that's why. But Bettman pretty much poo-pooed the idea of, I don't even know how you could do it, how you could change the CBA to be like, if you sign in a tax-free place, your cap hits higher, or like, if you like add the cap savings, tax savings to the cap.
Yeah, I think it would be each team would have a relative percentage of their cap would be balanced out by state income. So, Florida would have to, teams in Florida would have to be knocked down a little bit comparatively to other
that's
teams.
Interesting.
I think it's dumb. I agree. Yeah, you don't need. Yeah, it's no. Is there any other sport that would talk about this? Does the NBA talk about state income tax problems? NFL, MLB? No. I know it's different.
I've heard it in baseball before.
Have you heard in baseball?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Well, baseball, there's no,
because you're signing for $1 billion almost. Yeah. It's like
baseball. I mean, those leagues all have different salary cap structures.
Yeah, right.
Obviously. But yeah, I just think like it just seems to be a narrative for teams that lose to no state income tax teams to be like, well, of course you're going to lose to them. Look how easily they can build their team. It's just like, if that was the case, why wasn't Florida and Tampa signing everybody to massive deals?
And that was pretty much Ben's point.
In the early 2010s when those teams were not the teams they are now.
And like what Will said, Will Scouch last segment, like not all the guys in the Panthers, like Gustav Forsling was a waiver claim. Panthers were his third team.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's a lot of guys in that team that came from somewhere else that were kind of didn't succeed. It's just really, really good scouting and really good general managing by Bill Zito and his team. Like to look at Gustav Forsling and say, this is a guy that if we work with him in 2 or 3 years, will develop into one of the best defensive defensemen in the game. No one saw that coming. He left Chicago. No one batted an eye. He left Carolina. No one batted an eye.
That's where they claimed him from.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, he's one of the best defensemen in the league.
Yeah. Well, and
purely defending.
Will also making the point that Sam Bennett wasn't drafted as the Sam Bennett he is now. He was not this type of player for a while.
And that's kind of what Porter Martone told us the other day, where
just name dropping over here.
I know. Well, all right, we got a good show. Where he said, I haven't played as physically as I can, but he kind of said it without saying it. Like, I don't want to be in the penalty box. He's too important to his team,
right,
to be taking penalties and running guys. He's got to be on the ice. He's too important. So as guys come and look, no one is who they were when they're drafted, right? I think,
right.
And I think that's the challenge that we're looking at with Connor Bedard. Is Connor Bedard needs to get that message of, I can't be the guy I was in Regina. I've got to come and play an NHL game.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully Jeff Blashill and his staff can get that into him. And then he'll be fully realized Connor Bedard.
That'd be great.
All right, let's take another break. Hit the like button for us. We are over 100. I am confident we get to 120 by the end of the show. So let's do it. Again, every like guarantees the trade, the offer sheet.
It guarantees the off-season move of your choice.
Yes, exactly. All right, we'll talk to you in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks.
New vehicles are in store at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, and this is your chance to score a great deal at the Employee Pricing Plus sales event. You can head on over to Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram on Route 12 today to choose from their huge inventory of new Chryslers, Dodges, Jeeps, and Rams' vehicles. You can lease the new 2025 Ram 1500 Bighorn for only $419 a month for 36 months, or finance at 1.9% for 72 months. Plus, shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. The team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram is here to help you during each step of your car shopping journey. With Ray's Price Promise, you can shop confidently with no add-ons, no hidden fees ever. The price you see is the price that you pay. Go check out our partner today to shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories and find the right vehicle for you. Don't miss out on the Employee Pricing Plus sales event for huge savings on the Ram 1500. For more information, visit Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram today on Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com.
And is there anything better than attending a playoff hockey game? Watching this Cup Final has been torture because I miss it. And when it does roll around, or if you feel like going to Edmonton or Florida, use the Game Time app. They are awesome. You can customize your spot. You can see this view from your seat so you know exactly what you're getting, especially if you're going to a new arena you've never been to before. They've got last-minute tickets and zone deals. It is easy to find and buy NHL tickets and tickets to every kind of event you want to go to. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Darren Wilcox in the chat has gotten our attention today with an interesting idea. He's been talking about sending an offer sheet for Maverick Bourque, who is a restricted free agent with the Dallas Stars.
Bourque.
23 years old. Now, if you look at the offer sheet compensation, you don't want to give up a 2026 first-round pick.
Yours. The Blackhawks, yeah.
Yes, because there's that is a lottery ticket for Gavin McKenna. You don't want to do that. So if you could offer sheet Maverick Bourque for under 4.68076, it would only cost a second-round pick in 2026.
I would offer sheet him for 4.67.
I'd give him that exact number.
Yeah, right. That's my point.
Yes.
Yeah, Dallas is one of those teams that is actually going to be in a cap crunch situation, even with the cap going up.
Yeah,
and that's a team you as the Blackhawks you got to be aggressive with. The reports have been Jason Robertson. His name has been out there. Now it's today. I think they're Dallas. That maybe that steam has softened a bit, but it's Mason Marchment might be on the block. Someone from Dallas is going to have to be a casualty to their cap situations for them to figure out how they're going to piece together their team and keep their competitive window open. Blackhawks fans, many of us old enough to remember how that went in 2010 and
it's exactly what we're talking about.
And how it goes. Yeah.
Is you make them make a choice.
Yeah, and you force the hand of the team that's, kind of they're the meme of the guy with two buttons and he's sweating. Like they gotta make their pick. Are you gonna keep Maverick Bourque or are you gonna keep your options open to keep Jason Robertson? Like what is more important to you? And if you can do that without having to give up that 2026 first round pick, I think you gotta explore those options. And Bourque is a player that feels like a perfect situation for Chicago where he can get an opportunity he isn't getting or wouldn't get in Dallas. He fits the timeline. He improves the team.
Yes, he does.
Definitely seems like a guy to go after.
I agree with that. Just also the idea of Mason Marchment is very intriguing.
Yeah,
we had Alex Vlasic
also
on.
Fine. Yeah,
name drop. And we asked him the kind of player that the Hawks need. He actually said Sam Bennett, but Mason Marchment is kind of like a Sam Bennett light, like a physical guy that puts up points, a guy who is a difference maker in the playoffs. Like that would be very intriguing. I think it's just good business to go try to screw a division rival too.
Right. Yeah.
Like go screw with the Dallas Stars a little bit. Make them sweat.
Marchment in the last 2 years, 2023-24, 81 games, 22 goals, 53 points. Last season, 62 games, 22 goals again, 47 points. Turns 30 next week. But 6'5", 212 pounds. Again, like it's a guy that I think adds that element to the team. And, you go out and you make a move to kind of pick off of the Stars. You make an aggressive move to, you add to your team. You make them better. That's a guy that's going to play in that middle to top 6 range and be a presence that they don't necessarily have. And it's a guy that I think you bring in, not that he fits the timeline, but he's not out of the timeline where he can be someone that can elevate the floor of the team for the betterment of the young group. At what would be 30 years old when the season starts.
So $4.5 million this year. Then he's a UFA, so you'd probably trade and sign him. The other thing too is, yes, he's 30, but he's only played 302 NHL games.
Yeah, he doesn't have.
He really came onto the scene in 2020-21.
Doesn't have as many NHL miles on.
Yeah, there's not
still playing a lot of pro hockey, but
sure,
it's different.
I think he is exactly what this team needs. And as you start talking about Sam Bennett, if he even hits free agency, now he's going to be like we talked about with Will. Teams trying to copy the Florida Panthers. There's no better way to copy the Florida Panthers than to give $10 million to the guy in the middle of the Florida Panthers playoff success. I don't know if he's a $10 million player on an ordinary NHL team. I think he is a uniquely Florida Panther.
Yeah.
I love Sam Bennett here. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think for what it's going to cost, you're probably not going to get a good return on your dollar. I think you get Mason Marchment on a new deal for somewhere between $7 and $9 million on his next deal.
Hopefully not
for the next
much,
4 years.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about 6 for Ryan Donato.
Right. No, I know. I'm hopefully what I'm saying is hopefully not $9 million for Mason Marchment.
It's predicting. So the model on cap wages predicts 3 by 4.864 on his next deal. So only a $300,000 raise for Mason Marchment at age 30.
It would go up, I would imagine.
And I also, I would think so too. But that's the
look. If Ryan Donato is in our comfort level, I think we've kind of said is like 5.5 to keep him around. I think for me, I would go up to 6. I'd say 6.5 for Marchment, just because he's in that same age range.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
I think the resume is a little bit longer of who this player is rather than Ryan Donato, who you're paying him that much. Is he going to be a 30-goal, 60-point guy again next season or for the rest of his career? Like, I don't know. It's that seems like more of a gamble than a guy like Marchment, who I think you know more of what he is at the NHL level.
Yeah, or guess what? How about both?
Okay.
Dickinson, Marchment, and Donato is a hell of a third line.
Sure.
Now he's got to fill out the top 2.
Yeah, right.
But Marchment can do it in a pinch, right? So if we're looking at next year, he'll probably be in the top 6 if they trade for him. But then as it goes on, you can move him down, put him in a more physical role. Mm-hmm. It makes a ton of sense. I really like Mason Marchment for the Hawks. We'll see. I mean, it's just not the kind of guy that Kyle Davidson's gone after before. But I think now it's become kind of glaringly obvious that it's something the team misses. You've got a guy on record, one of your future leaders on record, and Alex Vlasic saying, we need a guy like that. That's something this team is missing. Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for
Absolutely.
All right.
Speaking of Sam Bennett and the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah. Are my Oilers back?
Okay.
What?
Do not.
What happened?
Don't. No.
I told you I was
Not-
rooting for the Oilers
Not
all
getting
along.
away with this, Mister. Series is over after Game 3.
It is. It's over.
No.
Panthers in 6.
Look, I mean, again, I think the Panthers are still primed in a good spot to repeat, but you can't count out the Oilers. You cannot count out a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And look, this is, as we said before the series started, both of these teams are better. But a better Edmonton Oilers team is what you're seeing in the resiliency of how they've been playing.
Mhm.
Leon Draisaitl is the 4 overtime winners this
crazy.
postseason, like absolutely insane. And this series has just been so much fun. Outside of Game 3, the blowout game, which was ugly at the end of everything, it's been a great series. It's been a great back and forth, a lot of great drama. Now you throw Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce into the mix, and everyone's happy.
Everyone
Everyone
thrilled about
loves
that.
it.
They're forcing it down my throat. I can't just watch the game without Taylor Swift. Quit crying.
Be happy that the NHL
Good
is
Lord.
popular enough to bring in the most famous person on the planet, one of, if not the most. But yeah, it's been great hockey. I mean, you look at the games that, before the series, I was like, I hope it's 7 games and all of them are decided by
Just
one goal.
chaos,
So far,
yes.
3 of the 4 have been that way.
Yes. You're right. The Oilers are never, ever out of it because of the studs they have. Corey Perry pulled the old Jason Hayward yesterday in the first intermission,
Saw that,
giving a pep talk. But I got to say this, like, Oilers get down 3-0 in the first place. I did not love Bobrovsky's game last night. That Darnell Nurse goal,
Yeah,
buddy, you can't give up that goal to Darnell Nurse.
that's a great shot.
And then the was it the Reinhart one that was like a real weak rebound that just kind of sat there for a while? I might be getting my goals mixed up. Reinhart had like the one along the goal line. Oh, yeah.
The Reinhart goal was the one
tying
with
goal.
like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
left.
so I think the third Panthers goal was kind of like rebound hit him and it was just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who scored it, but whoever scored the third one.
That one
like,
was
what
at
is he
the
doing?
end of the the one at the end of the first period.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that one was the one where the play went behind the net. Both Oilers defensemen collapsed behind the net, and I forget who scored.
Yeah.
But they were wide open in front. That one's, I mean, geez, that's a tough one to give up.
Yeah, the rebound sucked,
But
though.
yeah, it's a tough play. But I think it's going to be fascinating now. As interesting as it was going to be going into the series, now you have Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard with the Oilers. Pickard has replaced Skinner twice, and I think you trust him. I think you trust him now to play Game 5, start Game 5.
It would be, I agree with you, and it would be different if, see, I always go back to the Corey Crawford, Scott Darling thing,
Yeah.
but Corey Crawford already had a dominant legacy.
He had a Stanley Cup in his back pocket.
Yeah, like I think that Skinner has always kind of been, well, this is the best we got, so we're just gonna hope and
Right.
pray. I think you got to play who's playing better right now, and it's Pickard. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It was Lundell who scored. Thank you, Chuck Fee.
Lundell. Yeah.
23. Yes.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what they do with it. But yeah, it's been great. Game 5 is going to be, I think if the Oilers can win at home for Game 5, I think they will take the series. I think if you give the Panthers a 3-2 lead going back home, then I'm thinking it's over for Edmonton.
So you're saying Game 5 is pivotal?
I'm saying this is a pivotal Game 5.
It is a pivotal game,
Yes.
as all Game 5s are.
That we're down to a best 2 of 3 now.
Yes.
Best of 3 series.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks to Will Scouch for joining the show. We are back Monday at 2, and yes, indeed, we'll do Mailbag Monday as we get ready for the draft and free agency and the stuff we've been doing for months and months and months, and can't wait for it to be over so we can start talking about the actual roster and stop speculating. So join us for that. Mini pod drops tomorrow. We're going to do our dark horse candidates for draft picks. So we've already done kind of the top 5. So now we'll do who are some other guys we'd like to see? Some of the names you heard today.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you check that out and become a diehard at allchgo.com. Scan that QR code on your screen and you can become a member today. Free shirt or hat when you sign up. 20% off all of our merch, takeovers, watch parties, all that jazz. Good stuff being a diehard. So we hope to see you there. And if you do it in time, get into our Discord. Diehards only. You get priority on Mailbag Monday. We'll talk to you then on CHGO Blackhawks.
We all silly like the mayor.